Hi everyone and welcome to the farm. It's great having you here. I'm just having a sip of some delicious Yaupon Holly Tea right here from Soapy Oaks Farm. That's right. Yaupon holly leaves grow all over the U.S. and I don't think most people know what they have. They have more antioxidants than tea or coffee, most certainly, and less caffeine. But yes, they have caffeine. A matter of fact, they're one of the only plants in North America that has caffeine in it. Yaupon holly leaves, and they're delicious. If you like green tea, you'll like Yaupon holly. I love to curl up with a book, have a cup of tea, and I'm in fifth heaven. Is it fifth heaven or seventh heaven? I'm not sure. One of those heavens. Anyway, I think that it's just wonderful. So this isn't going to be a rather long video because I thought it might be a nice time with all of this social isolation that we're doing, forced to come together for a bit. Well, I guess I'm the one coming together because I'm just chatting, and maybe you'll listen. This is going to be a rather long video, but I hope you'll enjoy it. I just will cover a few topics that I like to talk about, and maybe you'll enjoy hearing about too. And maybe you'll even consider giving Yaupon Holly Tea a try. It is wonderful. Delicious. So Rose and I wanted to talk to you about Yaupon holly. This is one of the many that I have here on the property. This one is right, it's right next to my house. This is a male. I'll show you a female in just a moment. But why are we talking about Yaupon holly today? Well, did you know that it is one of the only North American plants that has caffeine in it? That's right. In many cultures, these wonderful little green leaves are dried, made into a tea, and drank as a replacement for coffee or tea. In fact, it has about 0.8% caffeine, where coffee has about 1.1% and tea a little over 3%. So it's the lowest of those three in regard to caffeine. But what else does it have? Antioxidant properties. That's right. So not only is it a great way to take in a little bit of caffeine without overdoing it, but also a way to help take care of some of those free radicals in the body and to make you feel a little healthier. Let's take a look at a male. You coming, Rose? So just over here, yes, everything is very wet right now. It has rained and rained and rained. All right, so this is the female, and you can see it has these wonderful berries. The birds just love these, and here it is, March 22nd of 2020, and it's still covered in berries because there's so many of these around here. The birds have pretty much their pick of them. But you'll notice the leaves on the female are slightly larger, but just fantastic for making teas. Not the berries. These are poisonous to us. That's right, we would never eat these, but the birds like them. But Yaupon holly. So I've now harvested several of these leaves and some of the flowers as well, but those will be filtered out here. But I'm just pouring it all out here so that we can begin doing some separating. Why, there's a ladybug. Or what's left of a ladybug. I don't know if she's still there or not. Are you there, ladybug? No, it's not a ladybug. It's a half of a berry. It looked like a ladybug to me. Okay. All right, so I'll pick out any other leaves, any kind of sticks. And then the rest of it is just separating the leaves from the small stems. This can be a little time consuming. There are tools you can use for stripping them. You can do this. Works very well. But the most important part is just to get it as clean as you can. Once I do this, I will be washing these because these are going to be ingested. Me and perhaps other people will drink this, so it's important that it be clean. But right now, I'm just doing the basics of getting the leaves off the stems. Leaves and the flowers, and the flowers will then be separated from the leaves, and we will then get these into the dehydrator and ready to have some tea. Does that sound good? It sounds exciting, doesn't it? Just to try something new if you've not tried it before. Now, I believe that it tastes very much like green tea, but there are others who don't care much for the flavor. So if you've tried it before, you already know, but if you haven't, it may be something that you do like and something that you may not like, but isn't that true of everything? I happen to love licorice. It's my favorite. If I had one candy I could choose to over all others, it would be licorice, but that's not for everybody. I know there are people who don't like it and many who do. It's the same with so many things, right? I had someone tell me the other day they hate bananas. And I asked why, and they said they didn't like the texture, the mushy texture of bananas. So, and I understand they do have a different kind of texture, and certainly if it's not something you grew up with, that it might be appellant, maybe something you don't like. But it's so like so many things, you just have to try different things. That's one thing. My parents weren't the greatest parents. I've talked about that before, and I'm not going to whine about my bad parents. But what I will tell you, my mother cooked. She cooked a lot of different things. My mother grew up very poor in the country in Oklahoma. My father, just the opposite, came from a family that had a bit more money from the East Coast. But what I can tell you is that my mother, she ran away, much like I did. She ran away as a girl to California, and she got a job working. Her first job was working in a Chinese restaurant, and she worked for a true Chinese chef or cook, and did that for several years. And from there, and again, she was still a very young girl, she took a job working in an Italian restaurant. And she was a sous chef for several years. Then she went into another Chinese restaurant as the full chef. This was in San Francisco back in the 1950s, and the early 60s, just before I came along, before they located me. She was a very good cook. And as such, I grew up eating a lot of different types of foods. I was introduced to many different varieties of food we would eat. Chinese cuisine, we'd eat Italian cuisine, German cuisine, and because we lived in California, tons of seafood. Lots of seafood. And so I never had foods that I just wouldn't eat, except one as a child that I hated. There are actually about 3 foods I dislike, and the first one was lima beans, and I can't tell you why. There's just something about them that makes me gag, and it always did. My father forced me to eat them as a kid. He goes, "How do you know you don't like them if you never tasted them?" Well, I had tasted them before, but he made me eat them, and I got sick at the dinner table, and then got in trouble for getting sick at the dinner table. Go figure, right? But I just never liked lima beans. There's just something about them I dislike. And another food that I dislike, and for the dumbest reason ever. When I was a boy, we had some dogs, some German Shepherds. And one of them got into my mother's garden and ate the asparagus. And then, well, I hate to be gross, but he barfed it up. And I saw that. And from that moment on, I could not eat asparagus. I'm not kidding you. And I'd only probably eaten it 2 or 3 times in my life up to that point anyway. I was a kid, right? It was just one of those things. And that's just one of those foods that I just dislike. Is asparagus. And it's silly. I know it's silly, and I've eaten it in other dishes when it wasn't highlighted as the thing, you know. I can eat it. I'm not gonna get sick if I eat it. It's just not a food I purposely go out and purchase or grow myself. I love to see it grow, and actually I have grown it before, but just for the beautiful ferny leaves, not for the actual asparagus itself, which is just the sprouts, right? But okay, I'm going on and on. I guess I'm talking like this because, gosh, we're all in a very strange state right now, aren't we? And I know this is true of most of you as well, that you're affected by this awful virus. And to any friends or family that you have in Italy, our thoughts go out to them. I just can't imagine what those poor people are going through. And many people fear that that may happen here as well. I hope that's not the case. And I'm fortunate, I suppose, in that I don't have other people around me to give it to me unless I go out and I'm amongst them. Actually, right now, I have a house guest for a bit. And they're clean, thank goodness, of this anyway, I hope. But that really is the overriding subject matter right now, isn't it? Or things like this, or viruses. And that's one reason why I thought I would put this in a video, because this isn't something I've talked about much before. But I thought that this kind of thing, and you don't have to get it from me, you can get it from anywhere, you can make it yourself with what you grow, but it is something that is stated to have, excuse me, that's a cough, but it's not the kind of cough you might think. I've told you all, I think, before that I have a throat issue that causes me to cough. And which is awful now, like if I go out in public, you know, and I accidentally cough, people think, and run the other way. He's infected. Which can be kind of nice when you want to clear a crowd. But other than that, I thought that something like this, anything that can help build our immune system, and I love adding honey to this because, of course, they're the wonderful benefits from honey, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, well, you know all that, but and you can do whatever you want. You know, if you have to go to the supermarket, I hope you don't have to because, well, you know why, but if you do have to go and get your meds there, I understand that too. Not everybody can prepare their own, or not everybody believes in these kind of natural remedies, and this isn't going to help prevent or treat coronavirus. But one of the things that they're saying time and time again, and this is not new news about this specifically, but getting enough sleep is vital to a strong immune system. So obviously you wouldn't want something like this with caffeine in it before you go to bed, several hours before you go to bed. You shouldn't be drinking caffeine. But I bring that up simply to suggest that if you're not sleeping well and you're still drinking lots of caffeine and stuff, you might want to cut back on that, just for your health and well-being. This video is going to be longer than many because I'm not cutting this, I'm not editing it, because I'm talking to you while I'm doing it. So I can't edit this video without having to go back and voice over, and I'm just not up to that right now. So that's why I'm continuing to talk, so you're not bored, but you may be bored anyway, and if you are, you can certainly jump forward. What I'm going to be doing with this is, once I get these off most of the stems and things is I'm going to put this, or the larger stems, I'm going to be putting it into, here, I'll show you. One of these nut milk bags, which I use for so many things, but they're fantastic for things like this, tinctures. But I'll load the leaves into here and then put it into the dehydrator. So that's the next step. So if you want to jump forward to that, I fully understand, because I'm just going to be chatting here. But this is kind of my way of being social during this time when we're told not to be social. We have to do it online this way, right? And I'm so looking forward to going live real soon with, if nothing else, with a phone call like I suggested before with you all. I'd love to hear your voices and be able to answer questions or just chat. Just talk, just be friends. Talk about movies we like, or talk about books we like to read. I used to be an avid reader, and I still do read, but I don't read as much as I used to. But there is a book that I find at least once or twice a year that I can't resist, so I will buy it and I'll read it. And when I say buy it, I mean go and get a real book, not a Kindle. Although I'm not opposed to Kindles. I like the feel and smell of books. I have several leather-bound editions that they're things. They're just things, right? They serve no real purpose except for aesthetic. I like the way they look. I like the way they smell. I like a physical book. I always have. Okay. But, yeah, so the virus. One of the things I was shocked by is I went to Walmart, and I'll show you a quick clip of that in just a moment, but I went to Walmart. They have reduced hours. They have cut their hours from, here locally anyway, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m., I'm not sure, which is about, keep in mind, this was a 24-hour store previously. And so it's a real change for them to do something like that. But there's a problem with it. So I went up there at 7 in the morning. Actually got up at 6 and got ready, made coffee, that kind of stuff, and got the car and drove up there in the dark. And this is not an exaggeration. There were hundreds of people standing at the front door, all crowded at the front door, waiting for them to open the door so they could be the first ones to run in and get their toilet paper. Now, when I say that, I'm not being facetious. Once I got it, I waited for the crowd to get in. I stayed in my car till I saw the crowd clear, and then I went inside. And once I got inside, I was just going to getting the few things I need. I didn't need much. I was in and out of there in about 10-15 minutes. It doesn't take me long to shop as a rule. Anyway, what I noticed were all these carts with like 36 rolls of toilet paper, multiple packages of toilet paper. Just cart after cart after cart. Like people think that we're going to have a toilet paper shortage. Of all the things, I'm not sure. Now, obviously, that's a necessity we all need. None of us want to go back to the old days when they used corn cobs and magazines, to do their cleanup work with. Anyway, I was just surprised at how many people were buying that and hoarding. Like one person had 4 bottles of bleach. That was one of the things I wanted, was a bottle of bleach. But I went back there and there was just nothing to choose from. Everything had been picked through that quickly. Of course, I understand that they're buying hand sanitizers and those sort of things up quickly. But what I was going to tell you is the store is limiting people to 1 bottle of hand sanitizer. Because when I got up to the register, I saw all these people, and they were pulling the toilet paper out of their carts. The store employees were. They were limiting people to a single package of toilet paper, to single bottles of alcohol, single bottles of bleach, all those sort of things. They were having Lysol. They were limiting because people were hoarding it. And a lot of upset people, a lot of very upset people. You could hear people raising their voice and being kind of nasty, and which I just don't get. I really don't understand losing your, I don't know, common sense. This is a rough time for everybody. There are no exceptions. Well, I'm sure it affects some more than others, but this is still a difficult time for us all. Even people who may not be affected by going to Walmart and stuff, they may have their wealth in the stock market, so they're being affected. There are people who are doctors who, well, we know how they're affected. Lawyers are affected. They can't meet with their clients or aren't. There's hardly any business that you can think of that's not being affected in some way by this thing. So we are all touched by it. It doesn't seem to matter what country you're in either. It's in so many countries now. Maybe with the exception of some island places, not sure that it won't reach everywhere. But it's a scary, scary time for a lot of people. And I'm not afraid of the virus myself. I don't know why. I'm not built that way. I'm not going to go out and intentionally get it. I want to avoid getting it. I want to avoid getting the common cold too. So I do what I can to prevent that. But I don't have a fear of it. I feel good. I feel like I'm healthy. I hope that I am. And so if I get it, hopefully I can fight it off. But who knows? I've had some issues in the past that may have weakened my immune system due to certain treatments or whatever, and those are sort of things that might make a difference. So I'm doing my best to avoid it. And one of the ways I'm doing that is by, being here with you all. I know this is a really long video, and I appreciate you being here. I wish we could chat together here. I really wish there was a way on YouTube that we could live talk. And I realized you can do live streaming, and then people can call you on the phone, or you can talk to one person, that kind of thing. I'd like to find a way to make it more inclusive, and I'm really trying. I really am. I had so many plans for this year, and things have changed due to stuff with work, due to stuff with, Barry. That was a big surprise. But various different things, and this year has been unpredictable, and now we've got this going on. But I was working on a series, which I'm still working on, by the way, you'll know when you see it. But okay, I think I've about got this. So now I'll get these ready to dry and separate here. Okay. So there's still a few sticks here that I need to get out, but they're nice and dry now. So what I'm going to do is, see how easy the leaves come off now? So I just picked through these last few ones. This takes a little time doing it by hand, but it's worth it. Getting all the sticks. Sticks add unnecessary weight, and they don't go into tea bags nicely, and they don't add any flavor, so they don't need to be in here. So this is sort of the tedious part. But in addition, I have these in a colander because I just wanted to show you just with a few shakes. See, the little flower buds have dried up, and so those will fall through the colander. And those are all those lovely little flower buds. Some leaves, some of the smaller leaves may fall through. But the rest of this is just a little bit of cleanup. And I do this all by hand. Well, of course I do, because I don't have a robot to do it for me. I'm sorry, I get a little silly sometimes. But I suppose why I'm making another reason why I decided to make this video so long was because I know that some of you may feel a bit alone. I know many of you don't, and I have heard you say as much, that you don't mind being alone. You're kind of like me. But I will tell you, I'm not going to fib to you. I do miss activity, getting out, being among people. I didn't think I would. I consider myself a hermit. You hear me, I call myself that all the time. But on that same token, I do miss seeing people, getting out amongst people, and smiling or being smiled at, and I don't know, even innate little conversations sometimes are just nice. It's that human connection. So this is the only way I know right now to connect with you all. And I know some of you are feeling the same way, that you're stuck at home right now and bored or even lonely or frightened. And so this is something we can do together. You can sit and watch me do all this tedious work here. So as I stated earlier, I did wash these and dry them and then I dehydrate them, and they are ready for use. I just want to get as many of these little sticks out as possible. And there's still a few left here, quite a few actually, aren't there? And it's not hard. It's just this sort of walking through step. This reminds me of, I wasn't very old. I suppose about 8. Matter of fact, no, I wasn't 8. I was 6. When I was a little boy, my mother, my mother took me to visit my grandmother. And I liked my grandmother. Actually, I called her Granny. That was what she went by. I know different grandmothers have different names, but she was Granny. And I just adored her. She had a farm herself, a small farm. Her husband, my grandfather on my adopted mother's side, had died years before, 20 years before or so. No, that's not right. If I was 6, that would have been 68. So he died, I guess, okay, so it was a few years before. I don't know exactly what year it was, but it was sometime in the 60s, I think. So I was off of it. Anyway, she never remarried. She never dated or anything like that. That would just seem so weird if you'd known my grandmother. But anyway, I'm sorry, I tend to ramble. But we had gone to see her to visit and spend some time. She had been kind of ill, which later in life this would come back to haunt her. But anyway, she wasn't feeling well. My mother wanted to go visit her, and we did. And well, while we were there staying with her, it was way out in the country. And my grandmother didn't have many electrical lights on her home. She had, matter of fact, her main light was in her front room of her house. And it was a raw bulb that hung from a wire in the ceiling, where there was also an outlet. An outlet actually in the socket where the bulb was. There were no wall sockets, nothing like that. It was a single wire that ran into the house, and that's the only electrical light she had. And someone had actually run some wires from there, like later on, into another room where she actually did have a lamp. It was like her bedroom. But she had no electric light in her kitchen. She had a wood-fired stove, and that's what she liked. My grandmother, for all intents and purposes, was a witch. What do I mean by that? She wasn't evil or mean. No, she was a sweet, lovely lady who like I said, I adored. But she was kind of the medicine woman of her area. And many people considered that, some of the Christians in the area considered that evil back then, and called her a witch or Satanist, which, gosh, she was nothing like that. She didn't believe in devils and those sort of things. That just wasn't who she was. Why am I telling you this story? Because I'm just rambling. But on one of these visits where we went to see her, she had made up something for one of the local women who had cancer herself. And you have to remember that back then in the 60s, there wasn't a lot of hope for people that had cancer, especially women with cervical cancer and that kind of thing. There just wasn't a lot being done. Women's health was not considered very important back then, which is just terribly sad. But it was the way it was. And my grandmother would make little potions and things for them. And I have a book of some of those recipes and things that I've flashed it here on the channel before. I haven't really opened it and gone through it with folks because, well, it's a family piece, and I don't know. I may at some time when I get older, I want to digitize it for posterity in case something happens, like if there were a fire, anything happened to that, I would be heartbroken. But anyway, my grandmother had made something for this woman who, like I said, she'd had cancer. They'd pretty much given up on her. The doctors had given up on her. And I don't know all the ingredients that were in it. I know a few of them. And there are things that some would actually consider poison. And this is, of course, and this is just a story. It's based on my own reality. And you wouldn't use this as an example going forward and say, well, this works, because it was just this one woman that I know of. Or there may have been others with different situations. Now, I'm not saying that she created a cure for cancer, but what I can tell you is that the woman felt better. She seemed to be more energetic. She seemed to get through her day much better. And my grandmother one day told my mother, this was years later, not long before my grandmother died, but she told my mother that all she was giving her was honey and tea. It was a placebo. It was not anything medicinal, because she knew that there was really nothing that could cure cancer that she could make. There may be things that could improve your immune system a bit, maybe, give you a bit of stimulation, but there was nothing that could really cure you. But the woman believed in it enough that she actually got a little better. And she lived for a couple more years, and she would always owe it back to my grandmother, saying it could, or credit my grandmother for her good health, which my grandmother felt bad about because she really hadn't anything. Now, keep in mind, she never charged for what she did. I don't know. The only thing she ever charged for was, well, she made moonshine. Isn't that something? She was a moonshiner. I didn't know this until I was an adult. But my grandmother made alcohol. She made moonshine whiskey. And I remembered seeing the big jars and things, and I know my mother was embarrassed about it and wouldn't talk about it. But I didn't know what it was she was embarrassed about not talking about. But, kids sometimes know when things are not right. Well, I kind of knew something, but I didn't know what I knew. And why am I telling you this? Well, some of the things that I sell, now I'm not selling anything that I would call a placebo. I tell you what's in things when I sell them, or even when I give them away. You will know 100% what the ingredients are. I'll never tell you there's an ingredient there that there's not there, nor would I add something without telling you. But people tell me things like, look at all those seeds, or flower buds. But people will tell me things like, I took this for this condition, or I took it for that condition, but I will never share that with you all. I'm not going to, because those are anecdotal. They are just those people's experiences. There's no science to suggest that it was because of what I gave them. But I find those things exciting when people leave an Etsy. They leave a review and they say, because of this, my lifelong condition with this problem or that problem has got better. I don't know what to say to that, because I'm not going to make those claims, but I'm always amazed that people do. Is it true? Well, I believe if they say it, it's true. But do I believe that it's necessarily because of, the propolis or the manuka honey or the, whatever the case, the chasteberry or the stinging nettle or any of those kind of tinctures or potions or elixirs? Am I going to say absolutely that that is what did it? No, because I don't have any facts to back that up. Where I have facts, I will post them, from the NIH, the National Institute of Health, which you'll see that I will post an article in the description of this, the Yaupon Holly leaves, and making tea and how it's beneficial. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. Anyway, I'm so sorry that I've gone on and on. Well, what I'm going to do now is show you what I would do next with these. Tea bags. Now, I will tell you, some people prefer it crushed and powdered. And I provide both whole leaf and powdered tea bags. And that's all there is to it. And I make these up, and there's one woman who buys these 100 at a time from me, at least once every other month. She goes through them. She prefers hers whole leaf. Some people want it crushed, and in which case I will put it through a crusher, like the coffee grinder kind of thing, and that tends to take care of that. So anyway, that was it. I just wanted to share this with you all. I hope you're all doing well. I have a soap video coming up, so I hope you'll join me back tomorrow for that. I really appreciate you so much. We're going to get through this. We will. No need to social distance here. Great big hugs to you all. Big, big, warm bear hugs to every one of you. Thank you so very much, and I'll see you back soon. Goodbye.